Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2022 the Memorial Tournament. This is my Before the Lock show. And first off and foremost, thank you for stopping by, checking me out. I've got a lot to cover today. We are going to talk about, of course, the recent news with the Live Golf Tour. We're going to talk about the pressers. I'm going to go into ownership projections, my Cheapie play 7K and below, weather, you name it. I'm going to have everything you need to know before you make those final decisions for your Draftkings or whatever it is that you're doing fantasy golf lineups with. And with that said, let's go talk some golf. Okay, but first, let's talk about the giveaway that I have going on. It's always great to talk about free money that I'm giving you guys. And if you're interested, what is it that I'm giving away? It is 5 winners, $100 each. And all you need to do is simply make sure you're a subscriber. So if you're not, click that subscribe button, click that like for the video, and tell me who do you think is going to win the US Open at the Country Club coming up in a couple weeks. So again, to summarize, giving randomly 5 winners $100 each. All you need to do is be a subscriber and click that like button. Tell me who you think is going to win the US Open in the YouTube comments below. Okay, so some real quick information, and unless you've been stuck on an island, you have probably heard that Live Golf has announced its first roster of who is going to be playing in the event. I think they released about 45 players, and some of the shocking things that came out of that is, of course, DJ Dustin Johnson tipping his cap farewell due to the PGA right now. Is going to be playing in this event, which is kind of shocking because back in February, he came out, I think it was at the Genesis, with some of the other big name players in the PGA Tour and said, hey, I'm, devoted and, for the PGA Tour, and that's where my, allegiance sits. And then to come out and make that statement was, that he is, or not make a statement, but to come out and show that he is actually going to play in this. I think his agent came out and said that, he's been back and forth on this for the last 2 years and he's got to do what's best for his family. Long story short, it's a money grab for him. I've been talking about DJ for a while since he won the Masters, kind of with an asterisk as far as I'm concerned in November. The course played so different than it typically does that his mind, I don't think, has been on the game. His game has shown that. Like, the guy has all the talent in the world, but, missing cuts at like the RBC Heritage and just kind of crazy things. He also, went out and partied quite a bit after the win, and all good. I mean, he's also stated that he is not in this for the long game. What I mean by that is he never planned on playing the Champions Tour, and he was looking to retire. He mentioned what I heard was 3 to 5 years, and that was a couple years ago. So how I see this is it's, kind of his way to get a nice big payday and ride off in the sunset sometime in not too distant future. So what's also interesting is that he is the big main sponsor, as you see on his shirt there, for the RBC Bank, Royal Bank of Canada. And so he's literally pulled out of the RBC Open, which is, like I said, kind of their flagship event. Of course, they have the RBC Heritage at Harbortown. And I'm not sure if he had an agreement up front or had conversations with them, but there'll probably be some fallout regarding that. And then I think what's most interesting is on that 45-man roster we've seen for this event in London, no Phil Mickelson. That's probably the second most shocking thing that I saw. So he's out right now, as far as we know. Now, more players can be added. They've mentioned, if you go through the list, and I, retweeted out what I saw, I think the third shocking thing is that Taylor Gooch, out of that whole list, is going to play in this event. And why I say that is, Taylor Gooch is still very young in his PGA Tour career, just had his first win at the RSM. I'm a fan of the Gooch, and I think he's got a lot more, winning coming. I mean, I always kind of looked at his skill set and Burns not too far off. Now, of course, Burns has turned that corner and has won, 4 times in the past, 15 months. Where Gooch only has the 1 win. So, again, we're going to have to see how the repercussions fall out, what the PGA Tour, I mean, if it was, from my perspective, I think they're going to have to send a message. If they do not send a harsh message, if it is a small fine of $50K, $100K, a lot of PGA Tour players are going to go get this money grab. I mean, they are technically independent contractors, but also sign an agreement when they join the PGA that they'll never do anything to hurt the PGA, which going to play in a competitive league that is trying to take your players is going to hurt. So also, the last thing I would have on this, and then we'll move on, is if you look at the list of guys, right? The Kevin Nas and the Poulters and the Westwoods and the Garcias and pretty much the European Tour Champions Tour that would be coming. That's kind of how I see this. I mean, it's a lot of guys that know with all the flush of talent that has come into the PGA Tour that they have very limited, if any, events that they can win at this time. They don't have a Champions Tour. So I look at this live golf from my own perspective that this is pretty much going to be a competing tournament more against the Champions Tour, and it's going to involve a lot of European guys. Now, there are a couple of college, from what I understand, college higher rated guys that are going to go play in this. But the only reason why that is because they weren't going to make the PGA Tour University and get that exemption into the Corn Ferry Tour, and just didn't get a lot of spots or opportunities to get like sponsor invites or exemptions, whatever, to go play on the PGA Tour. So I don't know if it's kind of thumbing their nose a little bit at that, but so there's a lot to be, come out of all this. But again, if for some odd reason you did not see this information yet, I thought I'd give you my quick input on it. All right, I watched the pressers. There's 2 out there right now. There's going to be more today, but what's out there now is Fitzpatrick and Jon Rahm. I'll quickly summarize this. So Matthew Fitzpatrick, what I think is interesting, of course, we know they both have had pretty good success. Of course, Rahm has amazing success here at Murphy Village. Now, if you look at Fitzpatrick, what I thought was interesting is, of course, the Country Club where they're going to play the U.S. Open. He won the USAM back in 2013, has also played there a couple of times since. It might be routed a little different U.S. Open, but he is very comfortable on that course. It's going to be going with good vibes. So if you want to, I hadn't even look at the future bets for Matthew Fitzpatrick at the U.S. Open, but you might want to throw a few bucks on that, depending, how that plays out. Typically very tough conditions. He's done pretty well. And over his major career on the PGA Tour, his best showings have been at the U.S. Open. So that's just a side note there. And then Rahm, a lot of the questions were around, is he coming into, because he had to withdraw the tournament prior with a six shot lead. Is he more motivated? And he kind of stated, hey, it's a whole new tournament. And yes, he's motivated always to win. What I thought was most interesting from Rahm was that what bothered him the most, and I agree with him, is that the PGA Tour didn't even give him like a top 10 finish for the record, like worst case scenario, he would have ended top 10. Definitely probably would have won the thing hands down. But even if he had his worst day on the golf course, he would have got top 10. Instead, he's got a WD that shows up, and he stated that bothered him the most. He's never withdrawn from a tournament that he started and just doesn't like that. So I think, again, I agree with him. That states a lot about what he's trying to do. Like I said, it's going to be very interesting how this plays out with Rahm for this tournament, because I am, of course, fading him a little bit. I mean, if I build enough, he's going to be put in some of my lineups, but overall, I just don't feel like his game is as sharp, especially around the green and the putting. I think everything else, the ball striking is perfectly fine. And of course, putting statistics, if you're hitting, as I mentioned before on earlier shows, if you're hitting the ball within 15 feet of the pin every time and you're missing those putts, your putting stroke gain is going to go down. And he's stated that also, and I think he's right. So, all right, that's it on the pressers. Let's go jump over and do some quick analysis on the guys 7K and below, and I'll give you my top 5 cheapie plays. We'll go over ownership projections, talk a little bit about weather, and then we'll wrap this up. Oh, so I have one and done, and I am going to talk about a couple of my favorite lineups for DFS, so I'll give you that too. Okay, so I've hopped over into fantasynational.com, and as always, if you are doing your own research, go check these guys out for the PGA or for golf. Nothing beats it. That's my quick plug. We're going to be focused on DraftKings pricing, so if you're using Yahoo or FanDuel, again, you can use the plays, just the pricing is going to be different. And as always, I've got no filters turned on over here. I'm pulling up the past 24 rounds or 6 tournaments. If you guys have been with me for a while, typically I leverage recent form, so typically I take the last 3 tournaments, but because now we have a nice data sample, we're far enough over the halfway point as far as I know in the season, that I am taking a little larger sample of data, because, we're starting to get into that time where certain guys aren't playing in certain tournaments, and I want to make sure we're getting a true picture. That's my viewpoint. Again, we are looking at kind of a dashboard, what you're seeing a lot of information here, and what is it you're looking at. Of course, you got the cost, the salary for these guys from DraftKings, you got projected ownership, you've got their cuts made, and then this is the mini model that I have weighted pretty heavily on the ball striking and the approach. I've been stated that around the green and putting is important. And then the number one proximity, the pin I pulled in, 150 to 175. So that's flushing out the guys that I like below 7K. I also went through and I did a pre kind of analysis on these guys. And I looked at what I think was kind of an interesting tool. I was going to show it, but I like what I've got up there right now for you guys. But it was telling me green in regulation, depending on the rough. So longer rough, intermediate rough, short rough, and which is important, right? We got 4-inch rough. If you do go off the fairway, I wanted to see, out of the guys below 7K, who did that best. So I already did kind of a pre-filter, and now we're seeing the next filter, which, okay, the second proximity to pin was this 175 to 200, and they were only off by 1%. One was 22%, one was 23%. And again, if you're a little newer to the fantasy golf thing, what proximity gain or proximity to the pin is when they're hitting their approach shot. Not only are they hitting the green, but how close are they getting to the pin versus the field. You've also got recent results over here. So what have they done on their last 5 tournaments? And then we can look at tournament history here at Murfield Village for the Memorial Tournament. Okay, with all that said, I've got 10 guys that I've identified. I will state this right off the bat. I don't think you need to go down here too often. Now, it's all about the way you build. I'm probably leaning more towards a balanced build, but funny enough, the ones that I'm going to show you guys, I do dip down into a couple of these guys. So it's all depending on how you're trying to build. I'm going to kind of, spread it all over. I might have a little stronger, stars and scrubs. I might have a few of those. But overall, I will probably go with a little more balanced build. As I mentioned very early on in the preview shows, you need all facets of the game to succeed and at least even make the cut here. All right, with all that said, the first one that I land on is Stewart Cink. And I'm also kind of, what I've noticed is leaning towards guys that have played this course more than often, a little more seniority. A bit like Augusta, again, it does help to understand this course and how to play it. And another thing that I didn't note from Rahm's presser, the first time he played this course, I believe it was 2017. He played the Memorial. He actually missed the cut, did not like the course, was mad at it because he doesn't like missing cuts and thought he'd never come back. And then his caddy said, no, this course fits you perfect. We just have to make a few more different decisions. And then he came back in 2020 and won it. I thought that was kind of interesting insights. I didn't even really look into that. And I agree that, I want guys that have played this track and made the cuts more often than not. So, if you look at like a Stewart Cink, and I'll pull on each of these guys, they've had at least the ability to make cuts. Let's go look at him. Everything from a modeling perspective looks good. Stewart Cink's been playing pretty good golf. He's also got some pop in the bat, right? He also has a couple wins recently in his, kind of mid 40s. And if you look here, average 305 off the tee, pretty accurate. Also really good with the long irons. You can see around the greens, the only thing that makes me a little nervous, but the putter's been good. Approach's been good off the tee is, he can gain 5 strokes, gain a stroke. Let's go type in Memorial so we can see his complete history because he's played it more than 5 times. And what do we got here about? He's played the event 8 times since 2012. He's made the cut every time but 2018. And his best showing would be a couple top 25. So I just wanted to show you that. Sometimes it looks like off the tee he's not gaining a whole lot, but good on irons. But the putters looks like what has cost him even a better finish. So that is a little bit about Stewie Cink. He does gain on bent over the past 12 months. And as stated here, you can play difficult courses very well, but in crazy wins, maybe not the best. All right, the next guy, Troy Merritt, I think is not a bad play at all. Again, the 10 guys that I identified, I had to sit and then finalize the 5. You can see Troy Merritt's been, making cuts. Best showing was a T4 recently, then had a T12. Also, is kind of off and on, make or miss cuts. And I believe, he ranks when I pulled up, I think out of 36 rounds on bent green, so the past 36 rounds, or that'd be 9 tournaments, if I could do math, he was number 1, I believe, on bent greens putting. You can see also doing really well from that proximity 175 to 200. So if you're thinking about Troy Merritt, I don't think it's a bad play at all. But I ended up on, like I said, a Stewart Cink or a Kevin Streelman instead. With that said, you can see Streelman again doing everything, pretty solid. Good for the 175, good ball striker. Typically, again, it's the putter. I've always kind of lumped in Steele, which is also in this, and Kevin Streelman together, just probably a little bit about their names. So he's had a mixed bag of either make cut or miss cut recently. So recent form's not the best, but if we go look at Streelman, his history here, let's first look at Drives it a little less than 300, about 297. I mean, no issues there, but very accurate. You see the putter is the problem, but can handle windy conditions, can handle difficult courses. And if we look at real quick what's been going on, the irons maybe not as sharp, kind of on and off of the putter. The driver's been, out of all those events, he's gained every time but one out of 10 events. Let's plug in the Memorial just to see. And this is what was pretty interesting is that he's played this event, I don't know, at least 10 times. And he's made the cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a row. But he's also had a 4th and an 8th here. Now, again, that's a while back. 2019 to be the most recent. He's also had a 13th and a 13th last year. So he likes this course. He's done well at this course. His recent form is not the best. But out of if you're picking down here, this is the guy that I go through. Doug Ghim has only played this event 1 time. And, the shortest thing to say about Doug Ghim is I think he's an elite ball striker. His putter is what cost him, except at the Players. For whatever reason, when he plays the Players, he can make a lot of putts. So just always say note to self, plug in Doug Ghim when we get to the Players again. But you can see from the ball striking perspective, everything's great. I have no issues. But recent is either he's making like a T30 or missing a cut or the last 5. And like I said, only played here once. So I don't think it's a terrible play, but won't be a guy that I would probably be using a lot. Like I said, I don't plan on putting more than 20 entries in a large GPP. All right, Johnny Vegas. So it was kind of back and forth between a couple of these guys, but I ended up on Johnny Vegas. I'll tell you right now, one of the reasons is I think he's the first tee time off on Thursday. And we're going to talk about weather, but it looks like a little rain that evening. So the course is going to be soft. You're going to have the least wind from what I saw from Wind Finder at that time. So that was kind of the deciding factor because, like I say, his recent results have been good. I mean, he had a 4th at Corrales, a good showing at Wells Fargo, at Avondale Farms, and the Valero. And not the greatest at Byron Nelson, but he missed a cut at the PGA Championship. But again, if you watched it, very tough conditions. And then he's kind of been off and on making the cut here. So let's go click on Mr. Johnny Vegas. What does he do very elite? He typically hits it very long and pretty accurate, pretty straight. Putter also is his challenge. Can handle some wind if that does happen. But, the 2 key things that I think you got to do very well here. I mean, yes, you got to be a good ball striker, but you do have to be a good putter and get around the greens up and down. Let's go type in the Memorial just so you can see his complete history. So he's only played it 4 times, and it's kind of every other. So, if you're kind of going with this flow, right? Made a cut, miss a cut, made a cut, miss a cut. Hopefully he makes a cut, especially if we play him. So I like Johnny Vegas. And the next guy we fall to is Brendan Steele, looking pretty chalky right now at 12% ownership. Just want to note that if you're down here and you're playing. And like I said, there's not a ton after you get below 7,000 that really looks that good to me. And the reason why is, hey, he's the last 5 events, he's made the cut every time. He had a T9 at the PGA Championship, had a T13 at the Players. Arnold Palmer was crazy tough conditions. He had a T26. Really good ball strikers, all whatever the putter does. But why his ownership is so high is ultimately when we type in the Memorial, you're going to see he's played it also about 9 times and only missed a cut twice way back when, and has a 13th recently in 2020, a 20th, a 37th. So good course history. And I have, no issues. Everything says at 6,600, it's a good value to help you maybe put in a few more 9K guys together, or, maybe a 10,000, a 9, and a couple 8s, whatever you're doing. That's why you're going to plug in a Brendan Steele. Lucas Glover, kind of the same thing, right? He's played this course a ton. He's an elite ball striker. You can see, again, when you get down here, this typically the issues with these guys is that their short game and putting is where they falter. Everything looks good from 175 to 200. Mid-pack from the 150 to 175. Recent results, he's made 4 out of the last 5 cuts. Best showing was at the PGA Championship, T23. And the same thing is, I believe, Lucas Glover maybe has never missed a cut here. If you're curious on distance, hits at about 300. Very accurate from a driving perspective. Yeah, he's played this event, 5, 1, 2, it doesn't matter, 10 to 11 times, and he's only missed a cut, and that was way back in 2013. His best finish here ever, looks like last year, he had a 37th and a 38th recently. So I like some Lucas Glover. I'm a Lucas Glover fan. Just terrible putter. Okay, Neesmith I think is not a bad play. Great ball striker. You can see same thing. Putter's the problem. He's made the last 4 cuts, and he had a T12 at RBC Heritage, where I think at one time he even led that, maybe day 2. Let me go click on that. He was leading a tournament, and I don't know if it was RBC. No, it was Valspar. Okay, so he had a good showing at Valspar too. So I'm glad I showed, brought that up so you guys see that. Mystica de Valero, good showing, and it's kind of teetered a little bit. But yeah, it all comes down to whatever the putter does with him. But he's never made a cut here out of the 2 times he's played. Emiliano Green, I'll put him in here because I've always kind of looked at him like a Lucas Glover, a really good ball striker. I know that's not showing here, but the form has come back a little bit. You can see here he was missing a ton of cuts and then had a T33 at the Mexico. Nothing great, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel, it looks like, for Emiliano Grillo. Right, won his first event ever, which was a Safeway. Came right off what at that time was the Corn Ferry Tour as we know it now. I think it was his first event and won that. But you can see he had a stretch here from the Players on to RBC, just miscuts. Had a good showing at the Genesis, again some miscuts. Was in pretty good form last summer, and then it's kind of fallen a little wayward. Usually he's a very good, again, off the tee and approach is solid. It's typically around the green and the putter that can cause some issues. But you can see also he's, gained out of the last 3 tournaments, he has gained a couple strokes with the putter, but not so good at the Charles Schwab, which is bent. Last guy I'll talk about is Bo Hoag. And the reason why I'm bringing him up is that he is a local, is born and raised in this area. Actually lived, I think, not too far from where Jack Nicklaus was actually born. His grandfather, it was executive board member at Murfield Village. So he's played this course a ton. Went to Ohio State just like Jack. I think he's probably on a sponsor invite, if I had to guess. And the reason why I just bring him up, he is bare min price, and he had a T13 here last year, a T62 before. He has not been playing very well. From if you go with just recent form, I'll go click on him. Pretty decent off tee, not very long, but pretty accurate. But if you see here, he does gain on bent. Is his best surface. Shows here that he can also handle himself in some crazy wind. And we just kind of look at what's been going on here. You can just see just a string of miscuts, but he had a nice little run here. If you go back to the Memorial last year, he had a 13th, a 32nd at the Rocket. That's bent greens. John Deere's bent greens. The Barbasol, I have no idea. Let's click on it. I don't know. Yeah, that's bent greens at Keen Trace. The 3M Open, those are bent greens, and you can see gaining strokes. So what I'm telling you, if for some odd reason, and again, the large GPP, you want to bang in some, pretty big guys and play a minimum, Bo Hoag could get you to the weekend. So I'll just state that. All right, that's the top 10 guys below 7K that I wanted to talk about, and then I will summarize that real quick when we get out of here. Okay, I almost forgot to give you guys ownership projections, so let me do that real. Pretty good size of data to pull from. We have over 10,000 lineups that have actually been generated out of Fantasy National. What does that mean? So if you do like a mass entry, you can create your teams in here, pump them out, and then enter them to the mass GPP contest. So that's a good number. What we're going to want to focus on over here is this number, and it could be 1 or 2% depending on how everything works out at the end. But right now, it looks like Rory McIlroy is the chalkiest, leading at 19%. And if you see these stars, these are the guys that I have picked with my top 15, and then even the cheapies that I just showed. So I kind of can see where my guys are falling in. And I do have Rory. Then you got Joaquin, Xander that are coming in second and third. You've got Lowry, Piera, and Cameron Young in the top 6. So some of my guys. So a little chalk there. You got Kirk Spieth next. And then we got Fitzy, who's one of my picks, almost at 17% ownership. Amazing enough, Rahm's all the way down here at 16%. You got Sanjay M coming in at 16. And then one of my picks, Homa, Matt, Steele, Wise, and Reed. So Brennan Steele right now is coming in almost 15% ownership at that 6,600. So if you're looking to make some pivots, I give you or gave you 4 other guys that you can look at, which was like the Streelmans. We'll get to who was the other guys that I picked for you guys down there. Let me see. Stuart Sink, Johnny Vegas. Trying to see anybody else. But yeah, you've got some options because if, and a very good possibility that Brendan Steele could miss the cut, right there you could avoid some major chalk bomb. Aaron Wise is a pick coming in pretty hefty. Patrick Reed, kind of a shocker that I think people are a little bit on the bandwagon of what I'm stating. It's coming in at over 14%. Morikawa all the way down to 13%. You got Noren, then Cam Smith, which I kind of like to see that he's down to 12%. Because like I said, a lot of my bills will probably start with him. You got Siwoo Kim at 12%. You got Victor Hovland around 11. Will Z coming in at 10. Corey Connors around 10. Keegan Bradley around 10% ownership. Oh, Lucas Glover, that's another option to pivot from Steele. He's at 9%. There's Strillman, the other person that you could go to. He's at 6% if you want to get off that Steele chalk. Nobody wants anything to do with Brian Harmon after last week. Gary Woodland, that's kind of interesting that he's down to 5%. He's had a decent track record here. I think a lot of people are thinking that Florida swing goodness that Gary Woodland showed us might be over. I'll just scroll through these for you. I'm not going to read all these, but you can just, you can always pause it if you want to see where some of these guys. Johnny Vegas, 2.5%. Remember, he's got the first tee time out. I kind of like that play. If you need another pivot from Steele, Stewart Sink. There's that Bo Hoag at 6K. He's at 1%. And I think that's about it. All the rest of these guys are less than 1%. So that gives you a good understanding where projected ownership is coming in. This is Wednesday, later afternoon. So it should be a pretty good number to go off. All right, let's go over and talk about weather. All right, let's talk a little weather. So, of course, as always, you are going to want to jump and use windfinder.com if you are new to this. And the reason why you want to use, not so much if you're just playing a 4-day classic tournament. I just don't think, I mean, if you want to do an AM, PM split, I don't really, well, we'll look at it, see if there's any advantages there. Last I looked, I didn't really see a big AM, PM kind of tea time wave split that makes sense. But you're going to want to pull up this Shawnee Hills, O'Shaughnessy. This is the closest location that you're going to get forecast data. Now, I have another one that's pulling real time. It's from the airport, so you're getting really good wind understanding of what's going on. And it's what pilots use when they are trying to, schedule their flights and see what's going on. So, long story short, if you are doing showdown, you are definitely going to want to leverage Windfinder. Now, let's go pull up the super forecast. That breaks it down hour by hour. This is Wednesday. You can see they are dealing with a bit of wind today, but we don't really care about that. What we care about is what this is going to do. So, this is how I see this playing out. So, it's saying possible, a little rain in the morning. It's saying at 8 o'clock. The guys, as far as I know, I think are teeing off at 7 o'clock Eastern. So they could possibly have a little rain to deal with, but it could also soften the course up. It does look like there is a little bit of an advantage from a wind side in the morning tee times versus what's going to be going on in the afternoon, but nothing crazy. I mean, gust up to 21 possible, but who knows? And then if you want to look at Friday, same thing, of course, the morning it's going to be calmer, pick up in the afternoon. So what I'm saying is I don't see, it's not where, the AM's getting a break here and then when they go out in the PM that they're not going to have about the same wind conditions. So where this really comes into effect, which I forgot which tournament, it was so recent, we've had a lot of weather, is, maybe it was the PGA, where the guys in the morning, funny enough, went out and they had calmer conditions and then it picked up in the afternoon, and then they came out in the afternoon, and the wind was actually stronger in the morning and laid down in the afternoon. So if you get something like that, that's when it typically comes into play. All right, let's just go look at the whole 4-day forecast real quick. So Saturday looks perfect. Nothing going on from right now, what they're stating. Nothing to worry about. Sun, maybe a little cooler in the morning, so the ball might not travel as far, but that's about it. And then Sunday, could gust a little bit in as the guys start to wrap up that final round, but it looks good. I mean, we've had a lot of weather at this tournament from wind and rain. It looks like they're going to have some nice conditions to play. And then I'll note here, it does say it could rain Wednesday. So again, why I kind of like the Thursday morning. I'm always a fan of when the course got a little bit of water that night and calm conditions. These guys can fly at pins that they typically can't. Last thing I'll tell you is there is the ability to pull Ohio State University Airport, which will give you more, wind direction and speeds if you're really looking to see what's going on. This is pulling kind of really more, as far as I know. Well, I guess we can. No, it's pulling more up-to-date data is how I see it. So you're going to see, and this would be the gust, and this would be what's going on. So really not a ton you could do from, it's not like you can make changes now. If you're betting something live, maybe you could leverage this information. But I just thought it was interesting. But you're going to want to stick with this Shawnee Hills O'Shaughnessy. All right, let's jump back, wrap this up, and get you guys out of here. Okay, so to summarize my top 5 cheapie plays, I'll go over this real quick for you again. We're going to Brennan Steele. Again, great course history. Been playing good golf. Shown up in some tough conditions, tough weather. So we're going to plug him in below 7K. You've got the ultimate ball striker, no gloves, smell the glove Glover, who cannot putt typically. Now you got Stewie Sink kind of throwing a couple wins together. Has been also competitive again. He's got a little pop in his bat and has played this course a ton. And same thing with Streelman. Great course history, pretty decent recent form. And then last but not least, Johnny Vegas got that early tee time. Maybe you could take advantage of that length and get those irons firing. They've been kind of slacking recently, but he's also got to make a few putts. But that would be below 7K, the 5 guys that I will plug in if the build that I'm making asks for it. So, like I said, I don't think you need to go too many times below 7K. You get a lot of value in the middle because this is almost like a major kind of pricing because of how strong the field is. All right, real quick to recap the one and done. If you are in one and done and you're thinking about who you want to play, these are the guys that I've kind of focused on. I've already kind of mentioned this in yesterday's show. I burned already a lot of these guys that are here. For me, it's between Rory and Cam Young. I'm kind of back and forth, but all these guys, even I think Hideki Matsuyama, you could throw Fitzpatrick in there if you want to burn him. Trying to think if there's anybody kind of that would, if you are trying to climb up the board, that would be really lowly used that I don't have on here. And I had someone in thought process. Well, Corey Connors, I don't know how many people leverage him. I think he could do Patrick Reed. I think he could be the sneaky kind of play here. So that's only if you're like completely kind of, way down the list and you're one and done and you want to take a flyer to move up the board where, nobody's going to have them or very minimal. You could look at, like I said, a Patrick Reed, Corey Connors, because I think a lot of these guys will be the guys that they, will get plugged in. Of course, you got Cantlay and Rahm, who's dominated here the last, 4 years. And then, of course, Morikawa also has had great success, lost in the playoff, but won the Workday Charity Open. All right, that's one and done. And then if you're interested, I always like to bet first round leaders. I don't bet round 2, round 3, round 4. I just do first round. That's just the way I do it. I think you get better odds. You get a, kind of understanding. All of these guys have early tee times. So I'll just state that again. You guys know that I typically feel like the first round leader typically comes out of the morning wave. Makes sense. Again, fresh, brand new greens, especially if you get a little rain on them. You could attack flags. The wind is down. If you are going to go low, it's typically in the morning on the first round. And so I've already put a bet in on Cam Smith 35-1. You got Cameron Young 40-1. You got Joaquin Niemann 40-1. You got Bradley 50-1. And then my long shot, which could happen though. I mean, he's been playing pretty good golf. He just won again at the Byron Nelson. You got KH Lee at 90-1. Typically, first round leaders I take in a, I don't know, we'll call it the average Joe Schmo PGA tournament. I like to look for the high odd guys, but in this tournament, I don't see someone coming and shooting 6-7 under. That's a complete, no name from way down below. I said KH Lee would be for me the only one, but you'd never know. I mean, it's a first round. Anybody can shoot one good round of golf. So that's the guys that I'm looking at from our first round leaders. And then there's been some requests. So I'm doing this for you guys. I did it last week for the first time, and it did not work out well. If I remember correctly, I think I had Kisner and Harmon. No, it was Hoagie. I think I had Hoagie and Harmon in my kind of first kind of look at for a large GPP build. And so I put a couple together for you guys. So I'll let you check those out real quick. So I kind of call this my Augusta comp build. So, of course, you got Cam Smith, who's done amazing at Augusta. You got Reed, who's won there, done amazing. I kind of went over all this from an Augusta comp. You got Matz and Corey Connors, all great ball strikers. I would say Reed and Cam Smith have the putting advantage, but what we've seen is that Will Z and Matsuyama, for whatever reason, on crazy fast bent greens, they do well. And same with Corey Connors. He's had a ton of top finishes at Augusta over the last few years. If you put that build together, throwing in Lucas Glover, who I just mentioned from a cheapie, you still got $8,100 left over to plug in a Mito Pure or whoever that you're looking at for that build. So I like that one. And then I put, again, using some of the same guys, well, at least using Reed and Smith. And then if you wanted to plug in, again, a Will Z, who's had great showing at Augusta, it just, we know his putter could be his issue. But for whatever reason, fast, slopey, small bent greens, he does well at. Of course, Cameron Young, probably going to be super chalky. Even Brendan Steele will be super chalky. So Reed would be, I think Reed and maybe Cam will be a little bit. And then I've got 7,400 to play around with. Of course, again, if you're playing GPP and you're trying to win the ultimate prize, you do not want to max out the price. Hopefully you can leave 300-400 on the table, even more. It'd be more differentiation. So I'll give you that little side note. So those were kind of my first couple passes at my, kind of favorite DFS builds at this point. So yeah, so we'll see how those shake out. Like I said, last week was not good. I guess I think two of the guys I even had listed missed the cut if it was Harmon and Hoagie. All right, with that said, that is my shows all wrapped up for the Memorial. Hopefully that gives you all the information you need that I know to help you build some amazing DFS lineups, also from a betting perspective. Let's keep having some profitable weeks. You guys keep sharing with me if you have a nice weekend. I will definitely, if it's something that's pretty crazy, I will throw it out there. But, I just always like to see that people do benefit from this work other than myself at times. And with that said, do me the honor. And don't forget, I've got that giveaway. So if you've not subscribed or told me who's won yet the U.S. Open, please do so you can get in that drawing. And click that like button. Share it with anybody else that you might know might find this stuff interesting and help them out. Follow me on Twitter. I keep up with all the communications, withdrawals. I do that work for you guys, and I will tweet it out as soon as I know it. All right, guys, let's have a really prosperous Memorial Tournament and enjoy the golf. Like I said, I think it's one of the better venues that we get to watch these guys play. It's going to be a good test, and I'll talk to you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend.